A good writer must also be a good reader. So, fellow writers, what are you reading these days and what lessons can you learn from it to apply to your own writing? It's Sam with another Friday video for you and technically another book review, although usually I do these book reviews on my fiction reads, and this time I'm doing a nonfiction read. I did one last month too because I read a book on writing craft. I read um, if you Fight Right by Carla Hoke last month, and you can go check that one out if you want to hear my review about that. I am, as I mentioned some of you earlier, I am doing a video call with Carla later this month, the author of that book. The end of this month, March 31st, she'll be on here, so look for that. You can find the event on my Facebook page. The book I read this past couple weeks and that I'm talking about today is Stephen King's On Writing. Okay, so yeah, so another book on writing craft. I'm not sure if I'll be able to get Stephen King to come do an interview with me on here. You know, he hasn't responded to my messages yet. No, I'm just kidding. No, I haven't reached out to him. I could, I guess. I don't know, but yeah, I read Stephen King's On Writing book about obviously the memoir of the craft and things like that, or he even calls it a memoir of the craft. So here it is. I have never read a Stephen King novel or anything before this. I know he's big out there. Some things he writes are not really up my alley. I'm usually not a horror guy, with some exceptions, and I know he. I mean, he's known, I guess, for his horror. People say he writes in different genres. I mean, he has some sci-fi, fantasy, action stuff too. And I'm mildly interested in some of that, especially after reading this book. I'm a few of his fiction novels, just the way he's talked about them and the ideas he has for them sound interesting to me. I might get into some eventually. I mean, I have lots of things to get to, but I'm trying to study some of the greats and learn from their successes. I mean, and reading a book by arguably one of the probably top five most successful living authors today. That seems like a good way to do it. But I also want to read, but also reading some of his fiction might help. My brother has read a lot of them, and so has one of my best friends from back home, who I talk to sometimes still. So I've heard good things about a lot of his stories. Again, dark horror isn't necessarily my thing. His time travel novel sounds interesting to me. That's 11/22/63, although that's a relatively recent one. It's not one of the ones he became best known for. And just hearing the way he talks about his novels here, The Dead Zone and The Stand are ones that sound interesting to me. They seem like less horror, more like sci-fi-ish. So I might check those out one day, maybe on my reading list next year. We'll see. Anyway, I'm not here to talk about novels I haven't read. I'm talking about this book I have read, Stephen King's On Writing. Good book, as you can expect. Again, it's one of the most successful living authors talking about writing, talking about his writing. I liked a lot of it. I'll just give you a breakdown of kind of what's in here, what you can expect. It's not super long. It's like 200 pages. Okay, I guess it's a little closer to 300, but still, it's under 300. So I read it in a couple weeks. Some of you who read faster than I do can probably read it in a couple days, maybe. He does have it divided up in different sections. The first section is largely a memoir, just his own life, and yes, that intersects with his writing. And I always think it's interesting to hear writers talk about like how they got started. Like he submitted some short stories to different magazines, and had humble beginnings. It's to hear someone who now has plenty of money and plenty of success talk about a time when he didn't. That's always interesting, I think. So you hear about how I mean, even these famous writers who we sometimes idolize, at his core he's just a guy too, just a guy trying to support his family and stuff like that. He talks about his how he got started. His first novel was Carrie, and his first published novel, at least, he talks about publishing that one, and working part-time as a teacher still because he wasn't big yet, and talks about his marriage and his kids a little bit, and even his struggles with addiction. I know he's written at least one fictional book that had to do with that. I think Misery. I've heard my brother talk about that one, but he talked about his struggles with alcohol and drug addiction. And at the time of this writing, he's come out of that. Even this book was published in like '99, so like this isn't super recent either. I mean, he's had. I mean, it's he was big by the time it was published, but he's had more of his career since then. But this book is like 20 years old, 20 plus years old, but still a good book. So he talks about his life. He talks about I guess some of the tools you need as a writer. I mean, and by tools he doesn't mean like a good pencil or a typewriter or anything. He means like vocabulary and grammar and I guess inspiration and things like that. And then he kind of just talks about like he goes through like every part of the process. Like, I mean, I don't know. I guess I was expecting kind of in some ways like I've read some writing books that are more I don't know philosophical, just kind of get at big ideas but don't give practical tips. This one is pretty down to earth. I mean it's more than just a step by step instruction manual. It's more than just a list of things to do, but it's fairly practical. It's fairly down to earth if you like that. The section that's actually on writing, the section about writing craft, he kind of just talks through every part of the process, like from ideas to drafting uh, to even editing and publishing and things like that, and just tells what he's done. And so it's it's helpful. It's a good guide. I will say there's a lot of stuff in here I liked. One thing that got some of it isn't stuff that I've never heard before because I've been in the writing world for a while, even if I'm not published yet. I've heard a lot of people talking about writing, so a lot of it was at least stuff I've heard before. Maybe not groundbreaking, but helpful stuff. One thing one thing he said that I liked was when people say write what you know, to interpret that as broadly as possible, by which he means, and I would agree with this, by which he means like when you write what you know, you may not know anything about space or sci-fi or maybe you've never been a secret agent or a superhero or whatever you're writing about, but you know humanity. You know your own life, you know your own mindset, you know human drama and emotions and feelings, and so he's like interpret right what you know as broadly as possible. So even if the circumstances are bigger than you, then just bring your knowledge and your life experience into that, which I agree makes good writing, especially in the speculative sci-fi fantasy genres that a lot of us write in. So that's a good thing. I will say he gives his process for writing, I I don't think his process is wrong, but I think there are more than one ways. There's more than one right way. He's more of a I think more spontaneous. I mean, maybe not completely so, but he kind of has this spiel against plot. Like he's not a planner. He doesn't like sort of out the plot details in his mind. I do that, and other people I've talked to do that. We have this debate in fiction writing about plotters versus pantsers. So he sounds at least a little bit more like a pantser. I mean, maybe not extreme, but on that side, which is fine. I mean, that's worked for him, and obviously he's been successful in many ways. So I guess what I'm saying is he tells a way to do it, a good way. I don't think it's the only way, but clearly it's worked for him. So if you read that, it could help you pick something up. And he also toward the end he talks about actually something that happened to him while he was writing this book. So I mean, at the time it was very recent. He actually had like he was hit by a car or a van or something and had a serious injury that he took months to recover from. If you're a King fan, if you know that story, I don't know, you might have heard it before, but he tells about that and how that shaped him in his life, even around the time of this writing. So that's interesting. So Stephen King on writing. I mean, this is my first foray into King, and yeah, it has made me a little bit interested to read some of his fiction. But even just his nonfiction, his narrating his own life, I was like, this is interesting. This is good stuff. And it's not. I mean, narrating his own life for the most part wasn't dark horror or anything. But interesting stuff made me interested to keep reading and made me at least pique my interest to possibly dive into some of his fiction, and all the free time I have with my TBR pile and everything. But yeah, Stephen King's On Writing, good book. Made me interested about him and made me interested to read more of his stuff, maybe in the future, and just has a few little writing takeaways that I think could be helpful. Definitely some things in there that can challenge you as a writer and that you might enjoy or take away from. So I'd encourage you, writers, read it, see what you think. Again, his way is a good way, maybe not the only way, maybe not the way for everyone, but a good way. So if you're looking for inspiration or if you're just looking for an interesting read to challenge you and stuff like that, Stephen King's On Writing, look into it, see what you can take from it, and hey, maybe you'll have some success too. That's the journey we're all on. I mean, if I have even, I don't know, 1/10 of the success of Stephen King in my career as a writer, I'll be happy. But I mean, I should be. Anyway, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Go check out Stephen King on Writing. Check out more of my work. March 31st, Carla Hoke, author of Fight Right, interview. Be there. In the meantime, have a great weekend. I'll see you next time. Thanks for listening and watching.